Well, good Sunday morning to everyone, and welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Kind of feels like we haven't been off the air for 3 days. Maybe it's because we basically haven't been off the air for 3 days. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is OmniTrueValue.com, and we've got wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs. Halloween is coming. Christmas will follow. You might want your home professionally decorated, or you might want to become a professional home decorator because you want to add it to your business. They're at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York. 631-957-5106 is the phone number there, and the website is liholidaylighting.com. So at least, Joe, from the standpoint of the way things are going on this morning, and certainly how forecasters have to approach these things, there's far more work in the buildup than there is in the actual day. So it does feel, I don't know, somewhat anticlimactic now that Henri has finally moved up and everything seems to be playing through. And I was looking at some of the observations this morning. I mean, nothing really stood out to me as far as even the winds out closer to the center. It's a little underwhelming in terms of what I've seen so far.
Yeah, and the thing didn't even make it or remain a hurricane. It's back to being a tropical storm. And you know, the talk was that it would intensify, maybe even intensify more than what the forecasters, including the two of us, Jolie, or at least me, I was saying just a day or so ago that perhaps this thing might rev up to maybe 85 or 90 miles per hour as it interacted with the warm waters of the Gulf Stream. Never did that, barely hung on as a minimal Cat 1 hurricane. And now, as it is about to make landfall in the next few hours, probably somewhere near Rhode Island or the Rhode Island-Connecticut coast, the storm is back to being a tropical system. At least that's what it is right now. The public advisory as of 8 a.m. indicating that the maximum sustained winds are down to 70 miles per hour, 4 miles below hurricane force. The movement is toward the north-northwest, about 16 miles per hour, and the hurricane warnings continue for Long Island, the southern coast of New England, and Block Island.
Yeah, I think those were changed to tropical storm warnings.
They were? I see changes with this. Oh, have been changed to tropical storm warnings. Right. Yeah, okay. So that's, yeah. I was going to complete the sentence, Joe, but you cut me off.
Well,
I'm just reading directly from the advisory here. The hurricane warning for Long Island, the southern coast of New England, and Block Island have been changed to tropical storm warning. And that makes sense because the storm, as we just noted, is not living up to the billing that was expected. The talk was the last day or two was that it was going to interact with the Gulf Stream. It was going to ramp up to like 80 or 90 miles per hour possibly. And then on its way toward landfall, it was going to ramp on down with the interaction of the cooler waters, but not ramp down fast enough to drop it below tropical storm. But it never did. It never did ramp up.
Honestly, I really thought, I really think the 2 days of persistent, strong northeasterly shear that this system had to get through was probably did enough destruction to the inner core that it then, once the shear disappeared, it spent basically a day and a half just trying to repair it. It was only until late yesterday afternoon and evening that we started to see it begin to organize. But by that time, it was already up to about 34, 35 degrees north, and it basically just had a handful of hours to strengthen. And I think Bill Goodman made a point the other day that I thought was, also important here too. The origins of this system were from a front and severe weather from the northern plains that when the front goes offshore, the bottom of the trough the bottom of the front, just disintegrates, and the leftover convection eventually developed into a tropical system. But those types of systems usually need to sit over water for a long period of time in order for them to really develop a solid, purely tropical core. And I think those were the issues here. The other thing is with respect to the ultimate track, where we started out at going to Block Island, and then we watched models trying to take it to New York Harbor, only to go back to Block Island at the last minute. Block Island, Montauk, somewhere in there.
I'd rather go to. Quite frankly, I'd rather go to Block Island than go to New York Harbor, Joe.
No,
I've been to New York Harbor. And let me tell you, I've also been to Block Island, Rhode Island, and I'd much rather go out there as opposed to going to New York Harbor. I can understand why Henri wanted to go there instead of there.
Right, but this sort of back and forth with the tracks, and ultimately yesterday, once it got east of 72 degrees west, that pretty much put a nail in the coffin of the idea that this thing was going to hook back northwestward, far to the west. Okay, it's moving northwest now, but it swung out almost to 70 degrees west. I mean, look, you see where the core is on the satellite loop on the floater. I mean, that's way east. At least taking the center away, I still think. We are seeing some rain. We are seeing some heavy rains. In fact, that renegade rain that came in ahead of it yesterday evening produced 4.5 inches of rain in New York City in Central Park. It broke the daily record. So they're already halfway. They're pretty much halfway to double digits. I still think there's going to be, from the standpoint of rain, there are going to be some odd spots that are going to wind up with a double-digit rainfall out of this. And particularly keeping an eye on northwest New Jersey, the Catskills, the northwest Connecticut, the Hudson Valley. This is where something silly can happen with regards to all this tropical moisture in the upper low. So that's where that's where the emphasis is on this, I think, is because wind certainly isn't it. And by the way, I was looking at current wind gusts. I mean, Montauk's got a northwest wind at 35, a gust of 35 in the last hour. Block Island was east at 41. You have a few odd gusts in Suffolk County in the 30s and 40s. I don't think we have a wind gust over 20 miles, not even up to 20 miles an hour in Nassau County anywhere in and around New York City. So, you probably will see the wind pick up a little bit going into this afternoon. It'll probably be a little gustier on the east end, but wind here is not going to be an issue. I just don't think we're going to see anything beyond maybe gust of 40 or 50 on the east end. And you know what? You get that in a winter storm. You get that in a thunderstorm.
And, yeah. And of course, now you've got. What was it? About 100,000 people who showed up at Central Park for this big concert yesterday, and I'm sure most of them are walking. It was canceled halfway through because of the heavy rain, and I'm sure most of them are walking back out of Central Park to their cars, to their trains, whatever. And all of them are saying the same thing. Well, they said that the hurricane wasn't going to come until tomorrow. No one said anything about the rain that we just got. They didn't say it was going to get canceled. They said it was going to be nice this evening or whatever. So already the forecasts that were issued in advance of the hurricane, already there are people out there saying, well, they screwed up on this thing once again. So you can't win, Joe.
No, but we could do what politicians do and deflect and talk about Governor Gasbag doubling down on these things never happened in the 80s when my daddy was governor.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, too funny, the world we live in. All right.
Yes.
Here's the radar. I mean, there's some pretty solid rain bands coming in here, and there's one east-west band as of 10:40 Eastern time that's running along Route 80 in northern New Jersey from east to west. There's some heavy bands cutting across parts of Nassau County, western Suffolk, eastern Suffolk. You could kind of pick out the center close to between Montauk and Block Island. There's a big arc of rain there. There's a giant hole in central Connecticut at the moment, where there isn't a drop of rain happening at all, and we've got some rain. I assume you've got some light rain out by your house.
Yeah, we've had some light rain here too. Yeah.
All right, okay. Here's the local radar. I'll just bring up the Upton radar, and you can see these bands up close. It looks like a nice little squall there coming into southeastern Rhode Island, southwestern Rhode Island, southeastern Connecticut. So there's your center's right in there. It's over or just to the west now of Block Island, moving northwest. It's going to come in, as you said, the southwestern coast of Rhode Island, southeastern Connecticut, and just kind of go its merry way onto the northwest. And the rains will continue at least into the first part of this afternoon. Just kind of have to wait for the center of Henri to move far enough north to pull that rain band up further north and east, because it cuts off at Route 195. By the way, we do have 4 flash flood warnings up for 3 counties in New Jersey and 1 county in eastern PA. They got a lot of rain last night from all that renegade stuff. It's amazing how much rain fell out of that. Forming out ahead in that whole tropical column that was up and down the eastern seaboard, coming ahead of Henri.
Yeah, and Joe, if you do some just simple extrapolation, remember last night with you and Bill, I said the time now is not so much looking at the latest forecast models. Now is the time to do some now casting, and just simply by extrapolating the positions. And they have been going hourly now with the positions of Henri. Just the last 4 positions from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I get a 2 p.m. position of 41 degrees north, 18 minutes north, 41 degrees and 18 minutes north, and 71 degrees and 36 minutes west. And using Google Earth now, my cursor places that position somewhere between Block Island, the north coast of Block Island, and a place on the Rhode Island, near the Rhode Island coast called Charlestown, Rhode Island. Still, again, if you just simply do sheer extrapolation, still as of 2 o'clock, I guess it passes over Block Island sometime around noontime, but it still hasn't reached, let's say, the actual coast of southern New England, probably until mid-afternoon. And again, way off over toward Rhode Island. Nothing like, again, some of the rogue models. I got to tell you something. Yesterday, and I think I mentioned this with you and Bill yesterday morning, one of the models I totally discounted in the plotting and the consensus track was the Icon model. Oh, our good friends over in Germany, they turned that storm sharply into New York City. Right. So you can see the value of the Icon model in this case, telling us that it was going to go into New York City, and here we are now looking at a storm that more or less is going to reach the Rhode Island coastline. No, it's only about 220 miles too far to the west.
Yep. Ultimately, again, when it was accelerating and moving almost 20 miles an hour to the northeast, and took it from near 74 west all the way out to 71. That just changed everything. You're getting the arc, and you're getting that turn to the northwest. That's happening, but that 3 degrees is 200 miles. So there's your 200 miles. If it hadn't have done that, if it had stayed, I still contend if it had stayed west of 72 west, we'd be having a different conversation this morning. We probably would be bringing it up into central or even western Long Island rather than seeing it as far east as it is. But let's also not forget, too, for folks in southeastern Connecticut, in Rhode Island, they're getting the center of this. And it is a high level, right at this point now, we're down to a high-grade tropical storm or a high-level tropical storm, which in and of itself can be problematic, but it's not anything destructive. Tides on the North Shore, we're just coming into a high tide now in Long Island Sound, so a lot of water is getting pushed back and funneled westward down the Sound. So I'm sure there's going to be a fair amount of coastal flooding, but fortunately for the South Shore, The winds there are northwest, and they went through their high tide about 2 hours ago. And I'm not hearing anything yet as far as how that turned out, but I imagine it probably did not turn out too bad. Fingers crossed. And of course, on the New Jersey shore, it was never an issue. Joe, rainfall amounts yesterday, because the Weather Service put some up. Clifton in Passaic County, Clifton and 5.23 inches. Jersey City and Hudson County, 4.71. Harrison, that's got to be Anthony. 42. I'm sorry, Anthony. 4.26. I mean, these rainfall amounts were really exceptional. Hasbrook Heights in Bergen County, 3.10. Danbury in Connecticut, 4.13. Just checking, Brooklyn. In Brooklyn, it doesn't say where in Brooklyn this is, 6.38. Prospect Park, 5.30.
Isn't that amazing?
1 mile east-southeast of Battery Park, 5.23. Nassau County on Long Island, basically anywhere from as little as an inch to as much as almost 3 inches in Great Neck. Central Park, 4.81. I'm looking elsewhere in Howard Beach, 3.65. Little Neck, 3.41. Suffolk County, anywhere from an inch to an inch and 3/4. And what was again in Nassau? Where'd it go? Nassau County, basically anywhere from as little as an inch to as much as 3. So, I mean, this was really, that was something. That was something.
And my daughter is supposed to be is at for a wedding today out in East Central Long Island. And we've been warning her, oh, this is going to be terrible. Oh, you're going to get the rain and the wind or whatever like that. So, what she did without even calling up last night, her 2 parents who are meteorologists, and saying, how about if I leave now? She just arbitrarily said, you know what? I'm going to beat all the terrible weather that we're going to experience tomorrow. I'm going to go right now and go to Long Island. And of course, she drove right into, and we're sitting at home because her cell phone, you can use her cell phone like a GPS. You could follow her or track her. And we saw her going onto the Whitestone Bridge, of course, to avoid all the messy traffic on the Throgs Neck, which is a disaster without a hurricane.
Right.
She went on Whitestone, but then she went on the Cross Island Parkway, and we're both going like, no, go on the Clearview. Don't go on the Cross Island. The Cross Island's the worst place to go during a heavy rainstorm.
Yeah. Not the Cross Island. Anything but the Cross Island.
Cross Island, yeah. And in the aftermath, we called her up last night when she finally got to where she was and said, so, how was the trip? And she had to drive through all of this heavy rain. So you see, folks, as I said just about 10 or 15 minutes ago, no matter what we do with this storm, with this tropical system from here on, we could be dead on with the path. We could be dead on with how high the tides are, and we could be dead on with any number of things here. The bottom line of it is, yesterday, that unexpected surge of 2 to 5 inches of rain ahead of the storm, which was not predicted, and screwed everybody over who had outdoor plans late yesterday into last night. That is the thing that's going to be remembered. Oh, well, I want to tell you, they said it was going to be Sunday, and I got rained on and poured on. It was horrible on Saturday, and they said nothing about Saturday. So again, Joe,
at the time,
I keep looking.
Joe, at the time that the rain fell, it was Sunday in Europe. I mean, it was Sunday somewhere. So, and look, as far as I'm concerned, those rainfall amounts count they count.
Right, they count.
They count.
So you could turn around and say, well, we went for double-digit rainfall, and you know what? You've already got a nice head start on that, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. That was a nice bonus. I had no idea until this morning that those rainfall amounts were that high. I was actually floored by the idea that the rainfall amounts were that high. I just, by the way, for those of you on the chat board, because I did see the question about getting a list of rainfall amounts. So I just put up the rainfall amounts, the link on the Upton page, and I am now, you're going to see the link from Mount Holly. for the rest of New Jersey. So anyway, there's your radar. It's still pretty loaded. The base is down. The bottom of this is not showing it lifting northward yet, but it will do so. But there's still going to be a number of hours of rain and more bands coming in until that happens. And as far as the track goes, I mean, if we want to look at the GFS last night, is in a way of rubbing it into it in a sense, takes it from southeast to northwest Connecticut, into the Catskills, into Sullivan County, sits it there during tomorrow morning, and then starts to swing it back east, where we see some rain and showers moving eastward, and then finally it goes away. I have not paid any attention at all the last few days as far as the long range is concerned. I just quickly looked at a few maps this morning, noticing that most of this week looks to be very warm and humid. I'm remembering back days ago about some kind of front coming around next weekend, but it doesn't really look like very much of what is there. So the next important cold front, at least from the overnight run, Joe, doesn't come for another 9 days, which is right around September 1st. Right. And then there's some humidity, some genuine humidity relief with a nice high coming down after that. But it's pretty much more the same going forward. Just don't see any big changes here in the overall pattern.
This is very much like, and you well remember, I'm sure, many days in the 70s and early 80s where we used to suffer through not just 3 or 4 days worth of heat and humidity. There were times when we would suffer through 7, 8, as you just pointed out here in this case, 9 days of one day after another of hazy, hot, humid, or hazy, very warm and oppressive, over and over and over again. And finally, when that cold front arrived to break the heat and humidity, you said, finally. We used to go through that a lot in the 70s, and not so much nowadays, because the flow has been more, everything propagates across the area for whatever reason much faster. But this it reminds me of all of those years ago when we would go through all of these long-term spells of heat and humidity. And by the way, here's the final thing to rub in terms of Henri and making landfall. Any decent and potentially robust, potentially strong tropical system, when it makes landfall, always seems to have in its advance a tornado watch posted by the Storm Prediction Center. There is not a storm from the Storm Prediction Center this morning, or as of right now, there is no tornado watch. There isn't, for goodness sake, even a mesoscale discussion talking about the possibility of severe winds or severe thunderstorms or whatever. Nothing. This thing is going to come onshore. And we remember like such storms as, for example, Belle and David and I think even maybe Bob, all in their advance posted tornado watches, for the potential of some kind of massive supercell that may pop up or whatever. Nothing.
Right.
This thing is just going to come on shore this afternoon with some gusty winds, some heavy rains,
and done.
Ta-da.
And done.
Historic Henri. That's what NBC was headlining this.
Are you kidding me? Seriously? Are you? Because I haven't watched a stitch of television in the last 3 or 4 days. Historic.
Jose Bilar, who is a very, very competent and I think a very good newscaster on the evening weekend news on NBC Evening News. First thing out of the box last night was about Henri. Behind him, historic Henri. And it was historic in the standpoint that it was the first time, I guess, that this part of New England was to get a direct hit from a tropical cyclone or a hurricane in over 30 years. And so that merited historic Henri. Forgetting, of course, that these areas got battered by other storms in the past,
right?
Like, for example, Sandy. And,
let me understand.
And Irene.
So let me understand this. So 30 years ago would be 1991. And, I'm just thinking about Governor Gaspag, who said that we didn't get these storms when my daddy was in office. Well, okay, there's one. You must have forgot this one. and you forgot the Halloween, the famous Halloween storm, because that also occurred at that time. So anyway,
Right.
I'm just saying, just putting it out there.
Joe, you and I, with all of our years in radio and television or whatever, you know what the story is. When it bleeds, it leads, and this one wasn't starting to bleed yet, but it may very well bleed. So let's lead with it. That's the way it goes.
Christina Pedia says the newscasters don't write their own scripts. For the most part, they don't. It's all written by other writers and producers. So this newscasters are just they're pretty much reading what's in front of them.
Linda Ellerby, who was at CBS for a good number of years. Later on, I think she moved to CNN. She wrote a book, And So It Goes.
Yeah, she was at NBC.
She was at NBC. She did a show at 2:00 in the morning on NBC, which got very high rating.
I was part of a package that made that show back in the early '80s.
Yeah,
that was very cool.
And she wrote a book where she said that one reporter covering a terrible story, it may have been a hurricane, it might have been an earthquake or something like that, came running up breathlessly to somebody and said, "How do you feel about this? How did you feel when this all happened?" And the guy says, and of course she could edit, the reporter could edit this out, for later airing or whatever. How did you feel? To get a soundbite. And the guy said, "Well, I wasn't here when this all happened. I just arrived like you did a few minutes ago." And the reporter said, "Oh, well, if you were here when it happened, how would you have felt?" Put that on the air.
It was NBC.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah, it was NBC News Overnight, if I remember correctly. And the show had Lloyd Dobbins and Linda Ellerby anchored it, and the show had a bit of a sharp edge to it. And they did a lot of things in the early '80s in terms of creativity in that newscast that no one was doing. But it was on, it was on at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So we used to always tape it on the VCR and watch it the next day. It was a really. I'm not a fan of newscasts in general, even the ones that I worked for. But that particular show I actually did enjoy, and it was really cool.
That was a standout.
Because we did. I was a couple of us This is when I was working in Corpus Christi. A couple of us put together a package that was entitled "How Do You Get a Story on Overnight?" Okay. And, basically we just looked for odd things. I forgot what my part in it was, what I actually said. But it was so cool to see the package run. And it really was, it was one of my thrills of my illustrious 40-year career.
If you ever can find that book, go on Amazon.com. I think again the anchor's name, Linda Ellerby, first class reporter, actually a top of the line reporter, and the name of the book was "And So It Goes," and it tells you in great detail a lot of what Joe and I have experienced behind the scenes with reporters, with news directors, with executive producers. In fact, they were even thinking about doing a logo for the show when it was premiering in early July of 1982. And somebody said, "Why don't we use the moon?" And the executive producer at that time said, "No, that's so silly, using the moon. That's such a blah, blah, blah. Don't even bother. Don't even consider it." And then a few days before the show was going to debut, somebody pointed out that on the night when the show was going to debut, overnight, during the time when the show was on the air, there was going to be a total eclipse of the moon. And she said the executive producer came running in that day and says, "Let's use the moon. Yeah. The moon is perfect. The moon is absolutely great." And the other thing was they had a night launch, the very first night launch of the space shuttle, which again was happening during the course of the show, the overnight show, 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And they sent Linda Ellerby down to cover it. And afterwards, her co-host, I forget who, Lloyd Dobbins. I think that was the name of the co-host. Lloyd Dobbins. Yeah. And so Lloyd says to Linda Ellerby, he says, "Well, Linda, you were there at the Cape. What did you think?" And she looked at the Cape and put on a pair of an expression which I never saw before. And she said, "Lloyd, it gave new meaning to the term 'the Earth moved.'"
Yeah. Yeah. They were they were perfect for each other. Just
Perfect.
They worked perfectly with each other. All right, I got the 11 o'clock advisory from the Hurricane Center. 41.1, 71.6, 15 miles east of Montauk, or 50 miles south-southwest of Providence. 60 now, top winds are 60 miles an hour, moving north-northwest at or 335 degrees at 12, and the lowest pressure 987 or 29.15 inches. That's another thing about this. You know, this is really coming into a big void. I would describe it as a big void of no pressure at all. I mean, what I'm getting at is there's no high of any kind for this to work off and provide at least some kind of a gradient against. There just isn't.
Right.
And that's probably another reason why the wind field is just, duh. And I'll let's see, the new discussion, is it out yet? No, still on the old discussion, but yeah, I doubt they'll have anything to say other than the fact that everything is moving along according to plan. And the WPC rainfall, I'll bring this map up. Now, we're at a point, remember, some places have already gotten half a foot of rain. So we got to add this on top of, I'm assuming that this is from when? Now, this is time-wise. So this was valid from 2 a.m. Sunday. So this actually counts some, but probably not all of that rain that fell. So you can see the yellow is all 6 to 10 inches, and the green is 2 to 4. So when this is all done, as I've been banging away on the table at this. When this is all said and done, somebody's going to wind up with 10 inches plus in total rainfall.
Right. But now here's the other thing that was confusing to many people last night, and I know I don't normally mention specific people on specific weathercasters, but what I will say is last night Audrey Punte on Fox 5, who actually is a fan of Joe and Joe. We've actually had Audrey on the chat board. And Audrey, if you're watching right now, we'd love to see you, come on and interact here.
Oh, absolutely. Audrey, or come on the show.
Audrey's, that's right.
Come on the show.
You see, now but Joe, we have a problem with that. And then the same thing with Nick Gregory. Nick is a good friend of yours and mine.
They're all afraid of us. The managers are all afraid of us. They might,
The manager, they have to get permission.
Yeah,
they have to get permission from local management to allow them. They go, like, we'd like to go on the Joe and Joe show. Oh, you can't do that. You're a representative of WXYZ, and what if you say something controversial and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. But just getting back, last night, Audrey Punte was talking about how what we were seeing in terms of the heavy rainfall was being generated more by the upper low that was coming in from the west, as opposed to the actual effects of Henri. Meanwhile, over on Channel 2, Vanessa Murdoch was saying these were the first bands of rain generated by Henri that were coming in. So now you have a difference of opinion here between two very good weathercasters on television. One saying these heavy rains that we're seeing right now was caused by an upper level disturbance, which had nothing to do whatsoever with the hurricane. Meanwhile, another one says, no, these are the first feeder bands from the hurricane, and this is only the beginning. And so you have to sit there and you have to watch and say, well, what is the case? You
know what? I'm going to be Solomon here. Okay, I'm going to say they're both right. I think the upper low absolutely enhanced the rain bands. And if you remember back last night, all those bands were coming in from east to west. And I think what we saw was you had that big tropical column out of clouds and moisture up and down the eastern seaboard. Henri is embedded in it. You probably had some renegade stuff that formed on the northern fringe that were going to move westward and not really do very much if it were not for the upper low that grabbed onto them and just basically you know,
Pulled them in.
And blew them up, in a big way. So I think I am going to say as Solomon that I think both can be correct. Okay, and certainly from the standpoint of my rainfall prediction of double digits, it is correct. Okay, so so there.
I mean, if you looked at I was looking at the GOES 16 satellite loop, and the interesting thing was that, I mean, here was the storm, and on one side, the storm, you could see the rain bands coming in from the Atlantic Ocean. So you'd expect on the other side, it would be coming from the opposite direction. They were both coming from the ocean on both sides of the storm, which was rather unusual, which indicates that, yeah, maybe indeed that upper system coming in had winds that were literally drawing that moisture up from the south, and maybe it was being helped along by the presence of Henri, which itself is one big gigantic blotch of tropical blech. So there you go.
We didn't have storms that had rain coming in from both directions when we were, you know. We didn't have men wearing nip rings. Oh God, I'm sorry. I gotta laugh. You know, you have to laugh to relieve the tension. I don't know. There's not that much to say. There's not a whole lot going on in the tropics. They didn't really put up anything in the outlook. I did notice on the GFS and the Canadian. Looks like there's some kind of gyre that's going to form over the Caribbean, over Central America, and maybe spin out a couple of systems a week or more from now. But you and I need a break, and we're going to take one, and that's going to be tomorrow and Tuesday because we need a break. So I'm thinking.
And when are you leaving? When are you leaving to come back?
Well, I was planning to drive up to. I was planning to drive up tomorrow, and or unless if for some reason I get hung up, to drive up on Tuesday, but I'm not sure yet. I'll make that decision probably later today as to whether I'm going to be leaving tomorrow, driving up tomorrow into Tuesday.
Okay, all right. Well, I can take a break for a couple of days. Who knows? I might even have enough time now to have my breakfast of waffles and sausage this morning.
You better hire a taster. just in case, you better hire a taster. All right, folks. After numerous highs. By the way, Joyce back. I see what you read. I did turn the level down. I also tend when I'm having fun and I get excited, I tend to speak loudly. So now I'm using my I'm down in my calmer voice. So
yes.
Anyhow. So no more live streams today. It is what it is. And Joe and I are going to take a couple of days off of relaxation. And if I have to, Joe, we may push even to keep it off through Wednesday and maybe come back Thursday. But I'll figure it out depending on how tired I am after driving up.
Since we already know, looking at the brief look at the long range,
so let's not go. Let's take 3 days
basically
off.
for the next 9 days. I mean, why don't we come back in September?
No. So how about we plan on coming back Thursday? Then.
It works for me.
Okay, so we'll take.
But if we come back on Thursday, do we take off on Friday
and Saturday?
And Saturday.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yes.
I am using my indoor voice, Veronica. I am. I'm trying to use my indoor voice. All right.
We haven't seen JJ in a while.
Hold on. Let's see. Oh, I got to take the background off. He's doing what he normally does on this show while this show is on. Just give me a moment. I would assume, Joe, that you're taking
I assume that you're going to take JJ with you, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
He's not like a cat, for example.
No, no.
I mean, some people go on vacation for a week and they just leave their cat at home.
No, there he is. This is what he does during the show. He's completely out. So I guess weather's not his thing.
I guess not.
All right. Okay,
All
everybody,
right.
try to stay dry. Let's let the storm play out. Watch out for big rains and flash flooding. Joe and I will be back probably Thursday of this coming week. We'll take a few days off and recharge our batteries, and we'll see you then. Goodbye, everybody.
Au reservoir.